Great job, everyone. Even coming in the inclement weather, we have a pretty small room here, but lots of folks virtually and online. So we'll go ahead and get started with the transportation body for WAMPO on Tuesday, January 9th, 2024 at 3 p.m. The first item is to approve the TPP agenda for January 9th, 2024. I would make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Awesome. Thank you. Anyone opposed to today's agenda? All right, the motion does pass. Next item was approval of the TPB minutes from December 12th of 2023. I hope everybody had a chance to review the minutes. Again, just because of ease, I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Lots of seconds. All those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please say aye.
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 Awesome. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the motion does pass. We're going to go ahead and go to Chad. We have a really robust director's report today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, members of Transportation Policy Body. Few items to report to you. The first item is last year, 2023, our chair has encouraged staff to conduct onboard training, onboard meetings for new members. So we were well trained by series of those meetings last time. I'd like to take the opportunity today to give some summary of what those onboard presentations are, and particularly the staff structure at WAMPO. Just a brief overview on that. At the advice of Chair last Friday, want to take a brief moment to report to you that item. So next slide, I think. The MPO, most of you already are aware of this, but for the new members, the MPO is agency created by federal law to provide local elected officials input into the planning and implementation of federal transportation funds to metropolitan areas, particularly with populations greater than 50,000. And ours is unique because we have a population more than 200,000, and that is also known as TMA, Transportation Management Area, designated by the Secretary of Transportation. So next slide on that. And this is our boundary with various jurisdictions, and you can see the entire Sedgwick County and some portion of Butler County and Sumner counties. Sumner County to encompass Mulvane, and then a portion of Butler County encompasses Andover and Roselle. Next slide. And a TPB member, your leadership is the highest authority for WAMPO. Staff seeks your approvals on various funding decisions. At your advice, Secretary, myself, conducts daily functions with the help of staff. That is just a structure, and then TPP member makes a difference in shaping regional transportation system through decision-making process. Membership comprises of local jurisdictions and KDOT as well. So next slide, please. So how do we help local jurisdictions? We help local jurisdictions by developing what is called as long-range transportation plan and then committed transportation improvement program. So these are the two deliverables that are required by federal law to develop these by staff, but at the same time, this is the mechanism how we help local jurisdictions. So next slide. And funding for regional transportation system, a thriving regional transportation system requires collaboration and coordination among local jurisdictions, KDOT, and Federal Highway Administration. So MPO serves that unique platform where it brings that unity, where it brings that collaboration between various entities. And that makes a difference, in terms of whether it is funding, from nationwide competitive grants or statewide. And general funding, federal funding commitments will need local match contributions of 80% and 20%, and they're usually reimbursement based. So next slide. And the decision-making process is highly structured because over a period of years, there were so many regulations and structured that staff need to be, conversant with and make sure staff is complying with those, that type of thing. And also wanted to share the three most important documents. There are many documents, but among them, three are very relevant. Those are long-range transportation plan called Metropolitan Transportation Plan, Transportation Improvement Program, also known as TIP, indicating 4-year committed transportation funding. UPWP is Unified Planning Work Program, documents how the staff is going to conduct tasks in that year and also estimates the budget to perform staff tasks to develop the long-range transportation plan and coordinate transportation improvement program with various jurisdictions. So Unified Planning Work Program is an administrative estimated budget, and usually it changes and some amendments are possible if, for example, we have a grant on safety and we add a task in the approved UPWP in November 2023. This body approved 2024 Unified Planning Work Program. And then we are making some edits to that in coordination with KDOT. That is one example of how UPWP can be amended. Next slide, please. So this is a summary of a good overview for the new members that MTP, TIP, and UPWP is a great summary because much of the work is revolving around these three documents. So next slide. So this is the part I wanted to share with you, that how staff is structured at WAMPO. Obviously, the bodies at the top, transportation policy body, at the advisor of transportation policy body, the secretary, that would be me, would hire staff. And I wanted to share with you that the staff is divided primarily into two parts. One is planning staff and then data and engineering. And then we also have senior accountant in WAMPO who is helping us with audit every year. And then this year, the audit work is beginning and some audit work is scheduled at the end of this month. We'll report on that progress soon. Wanted to share with you how some of the staff are working on, data and engineering is to do with forecasting, population, economic growth, employment, and travel patterns. So to do that, staff needs to compile data in the region, not only the infrastructure, like number of lanes and functional classification of roadways and model GIS and, develop those software, Transcad and software, all complying with federal requirements. So that's on the data side. On the planning side, staff is engaged in the public involvement and public participation process, report preparation, and website updates, collaboration with entities like KDOT and FHW and local jurisdictions, outreach efforts. Those are all, planning activities, whereas data activities are related to, today you will be seeing both Peter Moore and then Dylan Cossart. They will be presenting on commuter flows and some of the data. So you will see a couple of them. And then Dylan Cossart is, he's at Wichita State University studying. He's part-time working at WAMPO. So you can see on the right side, there are also a couple of part-time engineering and data analyst positions. And Marcella is also one of them. So just want to share how it is structured. And we have a couple of positions open in planning and data related to multimodal transportation safety. because safety is important this year, both comprehensive safety action plan as well as safe routes to school. So that I think that's all I have on this item. I can go to next item if. Thank you, Madam Chair. Next item is UPWP, that is Unified Planning Work Program. There are two parts to this. One is what have we accomplished in 2023 and what are we planning to do in 2024? So next slide, please. So on pages 12 to 13 on your packets, there is a, what have we accomplished in 2023? For example, comprehensive safety action plan is completed. We made progress on travel demand model. And then we initiated few projects. And then some of those are completed and some of those are ongoing. So in 2024, it's in your packet as well on page 14. Let me go to next slide. Just to give you a highlight, there is most importantly in 2024, the first 3 months we are dedicated on how to compile the cities and jurisdictions transportation priorities. How do we, the call for projects, or we're going to receive the call for projects, and then those will guide us, developing the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And then also we will be requesting project selection committee to meet to make those decisions on prioritization of the projects. So that's the important deliverable for us and focus for us in the first 3 months and first quarter MTP 2050 development. And then later on in second, third, fourth quarters, the work continues in approvals from you and also, public input on, and then completion of the plan. There are other aspects such as, the regional active transportation plan, regional transit implementation plan, and any further elaboration on any of these items, we are happy to elaborate, and it's in the packets at the moment. So let me be brief in the interest of time. So next item, let's go to next slide, please. So I think next item is Peter. Madam Chair, with your permission, let me request Peter to present.
Good afternoon, everybody. Here to talk about our bi-monthly TIP project status report. There we go. So this is in accordance with our reasonable progress policy. So you can find that on page 23 of the WAMPO TIP policy. And it requires bi-monthly progress reports for projects programmed to receive WAMPO suballocated funding in the current fiscal year or that have received it in the past fiscal year, but are not yet finished. So we're going to check in on the projects that haven't finished that have been previously awarded WAMPO funding. So primarily our emphasis is going to be on the ones that are programmed to obligate this year. So on top there, we have the Seneca and 63rd Street bike ped pathway with an anticipated let date in February of 2024. We have our safe routes to school planning assistance, which the anticipated let date and obligation date is to be determined, but we have more on that later on in our presentation. The Which Way video wall will be is anticipated to let in June of 2024. The Nelson Drive realignment is anticipated to let in April of 2024. And then we have the Oliver and Keachai Road intersection anticipated to let in July of 2024. The 53rd Street Oliver to Woodlawn multi-use path and the multimodal facility are still both to be determined. And the West Street I-235 and MacArthur project is anticipated to let in October of this year. If you guys have any further questions for me on this, feel free to ask them. And then also, we've provided a list of these projects for your reviewing at your table. Yes, it's a bit tough.
Any questions for Peter? All right, Chad, take it away.
And then Peter, you have a couple more items. Could you please, the MTP culvert projects, we have extended that, Peter,
Yes.
so you can.
There's oh, sorry, just a couple items. This is a map of all those projects that was in there. That you can see the ones that are mappable, of course, excluding the planning projects. And then there's some non-sub-allocated federal funds in the WAMPO tip. So as we spoke earlier, we get tunnel vision on the programs or on the projects that we always award funding to. Here's a few of the other ones that are in there that are in the tip, but didn't get or weren't part of WAMPO's funding, federal funding program. Or I should say, weren't awarded funding, I should say. And then to talk about the MTP tip call for projects, we've extended the deadline to February 2nd to give our jurisdictions a bit more time and to also be available to help answer any questions that may arise on project submission.
And then the tip amendment as well.
So our tip amendment 6, we are in the public comment period from January 6th to January 21st. We plan to bring this to TAC for recommendation on January 22nd and a TPP approval on February 13th. And they are available on the website.
Thank you so much, Peter. One next item we want to report to you is public engagement for regional transit implementation plan. Regional transit implementation plan is going to be wrapped by August 2024. So please take advantage of Bill Tro, who is the project manager. Please feel free to provide your input because your input is valuable on how we shape up and how we develop options for regional transit implementation. That's that. And then next item we have is safe routes to school. This body gave us the homework. So we went to our drawing board and we scratched our heads and then we came up with a three-pronged approach of solving the problem given to us. One is how do we identify funding up to 500,000 to complete safe routes to school plans for all school districts in the region. That was first task. And the second task for us was how do we create an RFP that includes all jurisdictions and all school districts? That was second. And the third was the collaboration with local entities on local match, as well as how do we get schools and boards to be part of this planning process? Because plan is always a consensus. It represents not only the need, but also a consensus how it is agreed upon need. So these were the three parts. So we were doing our sincere effort in accomplishing the first part. That is, we were able to, find from CPG and some from TA grants, CPG grant, and that CPG is from UPW. Sorry, I'm using acronyms. CPG is Consolidated Planning Grant, and that is part of the Unified Planning Work Program. And TA is Transportation Alternatives, that is part of suballocated funds. So the combination of these two is the first part. And then RFP, yes, staff already created one so that, it is based on how these funding would be paid based on number of schools and enrollment ratio the consulting firm will accomplish completion. So it's by stages, the completion of the award of this 500,000 is based on the completion of that. And then collaboration is where Dan is going to help us understand, what does it mean collaboration? How many school districts are there? So Dan did some homework and presenting to you.
All right, thank you, Chad. So as he said, WAMPO staff are preparing an RFP to hire a consultant for the development of safe routes to school plans for the WAMPO region. And Chad talked about the funding, but it is on the screen again for you to see. There is 300,000 that's available this year, as well as 200,000 that will be available next year. We're working on options to make the local match as attainable for all as possible. And then the jurisdictions and schools that have already expressed interest in safe routes to school in the fall will work with that selected consultant for further planning, in addition to the consultant also reaching out to the remaining schools and districts and local governments in the WAMPO region. So here is a map of the schools and school districts in the WAMPO region. There are 14 school districts that have schools here, and there are 176 schools total. This table here shows you all 14 of those school districts in the WAMPO region. It also shows the local jurisdictions that correspond to each of them. And then it is also showing the enrollment for each one of those districts in order from the greatest to the least. The two at the bottom there, I should clarify, the Circle Public Schools and then Halstead and Bentley Unified School District, they only have one elementary school in our boundaries. And so the data that you see here in the table is just from the one school in our boundaries rather than the entire district. So also, the school districts that are highlighted in black are the ones that have already expressed interest in safe routes to school. So as I mentioned earlier, the consultant would work with those ones that have already expressed interest, and then they'll also reach out to the ones in white that have not quite yet. And then I thought I'd give some information on kind of next steps for safe routes to school as well. So once those safe routes to school plans are developed, they will show the needs of each of those individual schools and school districts. And then the projects that are supported by those safe routes to school plans can then be implemented, potentially with Safe Streets and Roads for All grant funds or other funding sources. What questions do you have? Oh, go ahead, Chad.
Thank you, Danny. And with that, Madam Chair, the control is back to you.
Does anybody have any questions for Danny? At the City of Wichita, we have a pre-WAMPO meeting on Fridays, and we talked about safe routes to school for, I don't know, 20 minutes, just because we wanted to learn more. And I didn't realize we had 14 school districts and 176 schools in the WAMPO region. So thank you for pointing that out. That was something new I learned today.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Danny or comments? All right, thank you. Great job. Thank
you.
you. And thanks for entertaining all my questions on Friday.
Thank you.
All right, next we have our only other actionable item, I guess, well, to adjourn, but our consent agenda. Chad, do you want to tell us a little more?
Thanks, Madam Chair. The consent agenda is for, seeking approval on TAC membership. Technical Advisory Committee, online, we have Marcy Aycock from online, who is Executive Director for the REAP, Regional Economic Area Partnership. You all can see, I think. So that is the update on the roster for the TAC membership. And then anytime there is a update on the TAC membership, we seek TPP approval, and that's what this approval is. I think next slide, here is the action options.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Chad? All right, that was pretty easy. Thank you. So again, just because of so many people online and making it easier, I will make a motion to approve the updated TAC roster as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions for staff or any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Got a late one. Okay. The motion does pass. Chad, next we have public comments. Is there anyone from the public who would like to make any comments today? You have up to 3 minutes, and it looks like we have a taker. So Alan, and thank you for getting out in the cold.
Thank you. I didn't intend to make any comments. I don't have anything prepared, but with the last item on the safe routes to school, I just wanted to say thank you for emphasizing that and focusing on expanding that to all of the school districts. Obviously, having safe routes to who can argue with having safe routes to school, and that's a great thing in itself. But as you may know, I'm also chair of the Active Transportation Committee for WAMPO. And having safe routes to school will be a huge step toward improving the safety of transportation for everyone in the region. So I really appreciate that and look forward to seeing those plans develop. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. Appreciate it. Next on the agenda, we'll move into the discussion updates phase, and we have commuter flow reports, Peter and Dylan and Chad.
Hello again. So going to introduce you to our commuter flows report. So it covers all 22 cities within the WAMPOs region. Our report includes information about each city, which includes inflow, outflow, total counts about who's commuting from one city to another. Also percent of population of the workforce, mean travel time to work, workplace and residence heat map. Very fascinating report. It's online here. The source is the United States Census Bureau on the map, and the coverage level is by census block via the 2020 census, decennial census. But to get into more specific information about what a commuter flows is, we look at where people work and we look at the location where they work, and you develop a commuting flow between the two. And it's at the level of the census block. Now, I know that's saying quite a bit. It will make a whole lot more sense once Dylan goes here and gives you a few examples of the different commuting flows between different municipalities within WAMPO.
Thank you, Peter. Good afternoon, everybody. As Peter said, I am Dylan Kozer. Let's get right into it, shall we? The first city that we're going to look at is, if I have it, if I can click it here. It's on, it's clear. Oh, it's these ones, okay. Is Wichita. So I'm going to show you 3 cities today, and each city will have the inflow, internal, and outflow of workers presented to you. So the inflow is the workers that live outside of the city that go in to work inside the city. The internal is the people that live and work inside the city, and the outflow is the people that live inside the city but go outside to work and to work wherever. So as you can see here, the inflow of Wichita is 79,441. The internal of Wichita is 118,488, and the outflow is 55,019. This equates to nearly 253,000 commuter flow trips, 31% of which are inflow, 47 are internal, and 22% are outflow. And this totals to about 198,000 total jobs in Wichita, and 174,000 total workers in Wichita. And the table below shows the inflow, internal, and outflow flows for each industry class. Moving on to the inflow/outflow trends of Wichita. As you can see here, the top one, the internal compared to the inflow, the internal in blue stays constant, and the inflow in red also stays constant throughout 2016 through 2020. And on the bottom is also internal compared to outflow, which outflow is in purple, which outflow also stays constant. I would like to add that internal is, as you can see, internal is greater than the inflow/outflow, and that is different than all the other municipalities inside the WAMPO region. That means if there is one, Wichita would be the economic hub for the WAMPO region, which makes sense. Moving on to Derby. The inflow of Derby is 4,910. The internal is 1,670, and the outflow is 9,783. Sorry, which equates to nearly 16,400 commuter flow trips, 30% of which are inflow, 10% are internal, and 60% are outflow. And this totals to about 6,500 total jobs and 11,500 total workers. And again, the flows for each industry class are at the bottom. And moving on to the inflow/outflow trends of Derby. As you can see, the internal, also again in blue, stays constant on the top graph. And the inflow stays constant from 2016 to 2019, but dips down in 2020. And on the bottom, the internal again stays constant, and the outflow also stays constant. The dip in 2020 in the inflow workers could be explained, of course, by COVID, by by workers switching to remote working outside to companies that are located outside of Derby. So moving on to Hayesville, this will be the last city that we're going to look at today. And the inflow of Hayesville is 986. The internal flow of workers is 416, and outflow is 4,734, which equates to nearly 7,200 commuter flow trips, 28% inflow, 6% internal, and 66% outflow, which totals to 2,400 total jobs in Hayesville and 5,100 total workers in Hayesville. And last but not least, here are the inflow/outflow trends of Hayesville. As you can see, the internal and inflow stays constant, and the internal compared to the outflow graph, as you can see, the outflow also stays constant. I would like to add that for all the other cities and municipalities in Wichita, if you look at the inflow/outflow trends of them, they would look a lot like the trend of Hayesville. And I saw that there was a question about, do we have information about the other cities? We do. That will be on our website under projects, right? Under what we do. And then you hit data reports and it'll be under the data reports. And we also have it for the 2021 report, the 2022 report, and the 2023 report. So that is about all for the commuter flows report. Is there any questions?
Chairman, Sedgwick County Chairman of the Commission asked if he could make a comment.
Oh, yeah.
Chair-
Yeah,
The floor is all yours.
thank you. Everybody am I heard okay?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Hey, Chad, and is that Peter that was presenting? Or whoever.
Commissioner
Okay.
Dillon was presenting.
All right, well, thank you. So this is census data, right?
Yes.
Based. And I think, are you the one helping, we're working on this side transit analysis. The campus of Spirit of 12,000 workers, and across the street, NIAR is about 900 workers. We're trying to get, well, we just received the data of their employees' zip codes coming in and out. I don't think Spirit and NIAR, because they're in the unincorporated area of WAMPO, I'm not sure they're labeled as a city in the Census Bureau. We can have another meeting on this, but and then the same with the 10,000 workers that go down to Textron off of K42. So am I assuming correctly that and I see the trends over the years, which are fantastic. I mean, all this data is fantastic. But as we're talking about transit services to these major employer areas, plus the fact that Integra, if they ever get that deal, that's supposedly 2,000 or 3,000 additional workers. I think that will officially be in the Bel Air city limits, so it could probably be incorporated in that census. So am I fairly accurate on this assumption that we're getting this data from Spirit and Textron and NIAR?
Peter,
Can it be added to this maps that we're doing?
I'm not entirely sure on how we would integrate both data sets. However, I can look at that NIAR data and we can compile something with what we've received from yourself there on that.
Right. Okay. Well, it may be a separate project just for a transit, public transit analysis. Which may not affect your official, this data in the website data, but we may need it as we look into the delivery of transit services outside the city limits.
I can certainly look into this, and then to get a little bit into the weeds, the data is at the level of the census block. So if I
Right.
identify a specific area, I may be able to help you develop some commuter flows with that.
Okay. Well, you just assume that Wichita citizens and even Andover and Derby citizens that are driving into the Spirit campus, I guess those are probably in your outflow data, but the destination is not there. Okay. Well, Chad, we'll get with that as when we get the Textron data, then maybe we'll just have an internal meeting about all this. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner, for the data. And then Peter, Dylan, and myself have dived into the data, and the direction you gave us today will help us, get to the point of helping the transit project as well. We'll keep working on it, and we'll keep you in the loop. Thanks, Commissioner.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me have a comment. Appreciate it. Thanks, Chairman.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the great comment. Appreciate it. Does anyone else have any questions or comments for Peter or Dylan? All right, seeing none, thank you so much for your work on this. Appreciate it and appreciate from hearing more. Next on the agenda is demographics and socioeconomic of the WAMPO region, and we have Peter and Chad.
Okay. I wanted to talk about our demographic and socioeconomic reports. So the following demographic and socioeconomic summaries that we're going to show were developed in collaboration with the Center for Economic Development and Business Research and provide valuable insights into the economics of a region. Importantly, given that these economic factors can drive demand on future transportation infrastructures, these reports will serve as both a wonderful standalone resource and also as companions to the economic development report that will be included in the updated Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And everything I'm going to show you is available online. And for those of you in the room, you also have a pamphlet with all the different municipality summaries at your desk. So I wanted to visit this. We actually looked at this, I think, back in June of 2023. Wonderful amounts of information. This particular page here is about the WAMPO region, but unfortunately doesn't make a wonderful PowerPoint page. It's just a little bit too busy. So I'm going to try to do a whirlwind tour by doing a comparison between two cities, and you'll see what I'm talking about, and we can kind of look at the information that's on this page here. So I picked two cities to compare, and I always think when you're looking at data, it's always great to compare two things because data in isolation usually doesn't tell you as much as you might want it to. So on this first page, I grabbed, this is in that top middle section of the page, but I'm looking at WAMPO and Eastboro, and it's quite fascinating. You can look at the median home value for WAMPO, about $192,000 versus Eastboro over at $436,000. And if you look at the median household income, it's a little more than double in Eastboro. Fascinatingly, the median household income in Eastboro is about $143,000, which honestly seemed a little bit low given the home value is about 60,000 shy of $500,000. But if you look at the home value to income ratio, it's about the same, 2.9 to 3.0. And that's a common theme throughout the WAMPO region, but you'll see a few people who put that a little bit lower, implying that their households are a bit more affordable in their region. And then in the bottom center of the page, you'll see this. And often this graph stratifies the WAMPO population by age. People often overlook these graphs, and I love them. They really tell you about the economic health of the future of, and for the future of a certain region. If you see in the graph here, if you look at from about 20 to 24 up to the range 50 to 54, or 45 to 49, depending on how you want to do it. Those are your prime working age people. You always want that part of your graph when you're looking at this to be quite full, because it means for the future, you're going to have a lot of employment. And this is WAMPO. So that's wonderful, as opposed to Eastboro. Now, if you're looking at a greater region, this might be a little troublesome, but when you're looking at a small snapshot of Eastboro, connect your own insights to what you're seeing in this graph. That's a highly, the home values in that area are quite high. So I imagine most people that end up living there are probably more farther along in their careers by the time they're actually purchasing a home in that. And that's reflected in this as you see the age tick up close to 45 in the 65 to 69 area. You can see that part of the graph. And what's funny is you also don't have young families, because you see it on the back end of the graph at the beginning where the teenage kids are higher, but you don't have a lot of families with young kids because the parents are probably young as well. But it's always interesting looking at this. Use your insights, connect it to the data, and you'll find a lot of very fascinating things. And then finally, I wanted to touch on this. It bears quite a bit more explanation, but to just give a brief overview, on there you can see on the left-hand side of your pamphlets there, you have the ESRI tapestry life mode segmentation. Long words, but what they've done is they've categorized the different groups of people in these different life modes. So for example, the affluent estates that you see at the top, that's a group of people that have very high incomes, typically older, and have a relatively high socioeconomic status. There's 14 of these different life modes, and they all have descriptions. When you do look at these online, because I encourage you all to do so, if you hit the learn more on there, it'll tell you all about what makes up these different groups. But I put Eastboro and WAMPO on here because the affluent estates, this very well-to-do group of individuals, makes up about 8.6% of the WAMPO region. However, in Eastboro, out of the 14, they make the entire 299 households. Again, connecting your insights to what the data shows you, always a very engaging practice. And then I just wanted to go through just a couple more comparisons here. So you can see this is the WAMPO area as it compares to Wichita. Wichita's population makes about 73% of the people in the WAMPO area. But you can see the difference between the median home value, about 178,000 compared to the entire area, 192,000. Again, couple that with your insight. If you're looking at just Wichita versus the entire WAMPO region is going to include a lot of those suburbs around Wichita that would bump those values up. And then looking at our more high growth suburbs, you have Derby and Andover. And if you look at their home to value ratios, they start to go a little bit lower, 2.5, 2.7. So that means compared to the median, if you compare the home value to the median income, people have a little bit more income to spend on their home. Those ratios are just a little bit better. These are just some examples I wanted to give from the data. There's lots of intriguing things that you could try to look at here. And in addition to that splash page that you're looking at now and what we've gone through, these reports for each city, about 8 to 10 pages, and they include population demographics, household income, diversity profiles. And we have all this information for all 22 municipalities, and it can be found on our website. Take a look here. And so just go to what we do, data and projects, click on individual community reports, and you can see each individual one. Okay, any questions for myself?
Any questions for Peter? I don't have a question, but well, okay, I have a comment and a question. First comment is great job. I mean, data junkie, you know this, so I love this. And it looks like Eastboro or Viola's the place to go, right? Because they have the highest median household income and the highest median home value. So if you're looking to relocate, that's where I'd go. Again, just super cool data. I'm going to steal an extra copy and take it to our Eco Devo team back at the city of Wichita. But could you just, a lot of work went into this, right? And a lot of time. And for that, I'm grateful. How will WAMPO use this? Like, what impact will this have? Because I'm always super curious when we were so rich in data at WAMPO. I'm just curious to know how this is going to be a part of the work that we do. Thank you.
So what I'm looking forward to with this data is to inform a lot of our grant applications. I'm trying to think of a very specific example, but often, even for example, SRTS, you want to do some analysis on all the different municipalities and figure out what demands they have. And having like the individual median income housing stress that you can obtain from this data with a little bit of analysis is very useful. So that's where I'm looking forward to. My other thing that I love to do is when I get data requests, I have somewhere to point them to and go, here's the information. So it's really great to have this to serve WAMPO in general, in addition to researching things for different grants and such.
Yeah, and we might want to share it with the chamber, the Greater Wichita Partnership, or other, chambers or the other municipalities may want to share it with their folks too. I just think it's great information. So thank you, Jed.
May I add one more, how this can be used in the future. And one of the things MPOs are required to develop in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan is develop this performance measures. Developing data-driven planning, performance measures and performance indicators had become state of the art more recently. So this is one of the reasons why, these are like, for example, home value to income ratio is 2.9 for the WAMPO area. So that's a regional indicator. That's one example of how we monitor every decade. Staff at WAMPO are supposed to be compiling this data and maintaining this data and sharing with the jurisdictions so that over a period of time, like 5 years or 10 years, we monitor like what are the trends on these, whether it's home value or so that was the reason, Madam Chair, why, MPOs do this. And thank you.
Oh, outstanding. Thank you. Anything else for Peter? Seeing none, we'll go to the next agenda item, urban area boundaries update. And Peter, you're next.
Okay, so I wanted to give just a bit of background because the last time we looked at the images was back in November 14th. So the region an MPO serves must contain an urban area boundary, distinguishing urban areas from rural areas. So this is our current urban area boundary that was last established in 2015 on the screen now. And then the urban area boundary is often updated after development of a new census urban area. So what happens after the decennial census and they restructure the census blocks, and the whole process takes a couple of years, they develop the census urban area, which they define as the census blocks and area that are urban. That is in the light blue on the screen. And the rules about the urban area boundary must fully contain the census urban area that's developed by the US Census Bureau. And in our case, in certain areas, the 2020 census urban area given to us by the US Census Bureau extended past where our urban area boundary was. So keeping the boundary unchanged was not an option. So WAMPO staff, in collaboration with partner agencies, worked on developing a new one. And I want to hit on implications for funding. So for this urban area boundary, surface transportation block grant funds can be used on urban minor collectors within the urban area boundary, but not on rural minor collectors outside the urban area boundary. Non-suballocated transportation alternative funds from KDOT can be used outside the urban area boundary, but not inside, whereas WAMPO suballocated TA funds can be used in any part of the WAMPO region. In general, if you had like a rural minor collector and you were outside the urban area boundary, in that specific case, you wouldn't be able to get surface transportation block grant funds from WAMPO. That being said, there's many projects that's really not an issue. Alternatively, to address the TA funds, WAMPO, if you're anywhere in the WAMPO area, like you have a bike pedestrian project and you want to apply for TA funds, anywhere in WAMPO, we can give you TA funds. But actually, if you're in the urban area boundary, you are unable to get TA funds from KDOT, only from WAMPO. So it's really specific to the project. I just wanted to reiterate, because we didn't spend a lot of time on this when we presented it back in November. This is not an end-all be-all funding option. It really depends on the project you want. And it is something important to consider, but it's not make or break for many different projects.
I hope everyone took notes. We should have a quiz on that. So moving on, a new urban area boundary was developed with input from our committees and collaboration with partner agencies. The proposed urban area boundary we presented to TPB in November 2023. We got feedback regarding a large extension to the UAB to Rose Hill, and that's on page 26 of the packet. Ultimately, the TPB approved the proposed urban boundary, provided that WAMPO staff revisits the subject in the first quarter of 2024 to clarify the inclusion criteria. Further collaboration and review of the UAB guidelines, we were quite thankful for to have with both KDOT and FHWA, has led to the conclusion that the extension of the UAB, or the urban area boundary, to include Rose Hill is not reasonable at this time. And so I just wanted to, because we talked about clarification on what gets in the UAB, we try to boil it down to these guidelines. So specifically, the new urban area boundary must contain the census urban area developed by the US Census Bureau, intend to include whole municipalities, must form one contiguous shape, and should follow physical features that can be identified from the ground, such as road and waterways, and generally not substantially extend the urban area boundary beyond the census urban area unless the additional area is expected to urbanize in the next 5 to 10 years. And in collaboration with KDOT and FHWA, we took a look at the maps and considered it quite thoroughly. And I just kind of wanted to give you a brief view of our starting point. So this is just a population density map of the area. You can see where the urban area boundary will cover up here soon. You have Derby and Wichita, quite dense, the darker green, the denser. Moving on, we placed our census urban area and urban area boundary over those areas. So this would be our starting point where we would begin to redraw that new urban area boundary. And following the guidelines that we talked about earlier, where we include whole municipalities if they're already in the boundary, we try to contain the 2020 census urban area, extend there. And then we also extend to where the boundary makes clear ground landmarks such as roadways or rivers, in particular roadways for this area. And then following this similar pattern, we made it a very consistent urban area boundary for the entire region. And we arrived at this. And then I'll go back, but just to WAMPO staff, we intend to present this new proposed UAB developed in collaboration with Federal Highway Administration and KDOT for TAC recommendation on January 22nd and TPB approval on the 13th. And with all that said, does anyone have any questions for me? Any questions for Peter? I do appreciate you all following up on this, and thank you. We said we hope to see it by the first quarter, and so thank you for, your diligence in getting back to us. And I know that you worked with KDOT. I talked to KDOT about this issue as well. They had concerns, and hopefully everybody on their end is happy as well. Any questions or more comments, Peter?
I was really happy to have all of the communication between KDOT and FHWA. I feel moving forward with this, it provides the most consistent map that should pass FHWA's muster.
Thank you for your work. Any questions? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next on the agenda is committee and partnership updates. We just have a few today regarding the executive committee. We will meet February 1st at 11 a.m. And as always, it is an open meeting. Anyone can join us. We're right here on the second floor over in the Metropolitan Area Planning Department's conference room. So February 1 at 11 o'clock, come join us. From KDOT, I see we have Mike Moriarty with us. Mike, would you like to give us any updates today?
I am. Is anybody from Metro or District there today by chance, or is it just me?
It's just you.
Okay,
I think
that's
unless
fantastic.
there's someone virtual, but we don't have Tom with us anymore, so I think it's just you.
Tom has left the building. Hey, I've got a quick update from Topeka. Wanted to pass along a save the date. So the Drive to Zero Coalition is sponsoring Drive to Zero Day at the Capitol. That's on February 29th from 9 a.m. to noon. It'll be on the second floor Rotunda. We are expecting to have a variety of speakers and booths, and we can hear about all the ways to save lives on Kansas roadways. For those of you that aren't familiar with the Drive to Zero Coalition, basically it's an executive level body that represents a wide range of agencies and folks, state, federal, agencies, a number of advocacy organizations, private sector, university partners, KDOT, KTA, folks like that. And basically this group is charged with reducing or finding ways to help reduce traffic deaths on Kansas roadways. And this is their first ever Drive to Zero Day at the Capitol. So we're hoping it's a great success. So if you have time and you're able to attend, I would certainly encourage you to do so.
Great. Any other announcements or any other comments?
That's all I've got. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I thought you were going to say too, don't forget that March 6th is Transportation Day in Topeka.
I mean, from my perspective, every day should be Transportation Day, but March 6th is an extra special day for transportation in Kansas.
That's a really great point. Thank you. Any questions or sassy comments for Mike? All right, seeing none, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you're staying warm and safe in Topeka. And Rick from Federal Highway.
Well, I just might add that why don't we say it's transportation with a capital T on March the 6th.
Good point. Thank you. Yes, that's a very good correction.
Happy New Year, all. Yes, we've had a little snowy time up here on Northeast Kansas. So just wanted to make mention of a couple things. First off, Matt McDonald, who was team leader here in program development, has received a well-deserved promotion into our finance office in Washington. He will be continuing to work from here in Topeka and providing us some support. So we're going to be advertising for that position to fill our community planner position. In terms of STIP and UPWP amendments, Matt's going to still be providing us support on that as we go through the process of filling this vacancy, as well as the community planner. I did want to make mention, and this is coming up in the summer, it's a topic that we call August redistribution. And this is where federal highways, if there's additional obligational authority, comes out, and it's an opportunity to obligate, in other words, assign more federal money to projects. The STBG program typically is a good opportunity for this. So I just wanted to make mention, especially for our larger MPOs in Kansas, I think this is an opportunity for coordinating with KDOT on this going forward, and there may already have been coordination happening. This is the type of money that it needs to either be obligated or it gets lost. So we are looking at a fairly sizable amount. Last year, KDOT was able to obligate 70 million. I think we're looking at a figure much higher. So in terms of like Chad working with KDOT, I think it'd be a good opportunity to start having discussions about where there could be some opportunities to obligate these funds in the summer. So given projects that are happening. Beyond that, I don't have much else to report other than that I hope to make it down for a meeting in person this spring or later this winter. And good meeting. It was great. The updates were great today. So any questions for me?
Yeah, any questions for Rick? And thank you for bringing good news about money. That always makes me very happy. So thank you. All right. Well, when you come to Wichita, we will welcome you to WAMPO. So look forward to having you here in person sometime at your convenience, but stay warm and safe in the meantime.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Rick. All right. Any other business or announcements for the good of the order? Yes, sir.
Just how about Chad to come to Hayesville to give a presentation to our council last night. So I appreciate Chad doing that, and Peter and Danny they came down and gave a great presentation and told our council, what WAMPO is, what it does, and how it relates to our community and to our city. So I appreciate that.
That's a great idea. Councilmember Hoheisel, we might have to do that in Wichita. All right.
Absolutely.
Any other updates? All right, seeing none, in a record time, about 1 hour today. So way to go, staff, for keeping us on track. With that, I would make a motion to adjourn, even though I know y'all want to stay, but we probably better go. Is there a second? Is there a second? Second? Yep. Okay, you make the second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you so much. We will see you at the next meeting in February. Everybody have a wonderful day. Thanks for all you do.